Maxine Hong Kingston's The Woman Warrior. Memoirs of a Girlhood Among Ghosts, 1976, is a groundbreaking work that blends autobiography, fiction, myth, and cultural commentary. Though often classified as a memoir, the book resists straightforward genre categorization. It explores the life of a Chinese-American woman growing up in California, navigating between the dualities of Chinese heritage and American identity, tradition and rebellion, myth and memory, silence and voice. Structured in 5 non-linear chapters, each with its own focus, the book presents Kingston's attempts to understand herself, her family, and the cultural expectations imposed upon her. Through storytelling, Kingston not only seeks identity but also reclaims the power of language and narratives silenced by patriarchy and immigrant displacement. Overview of the 5 chapters. No Name Woman. The book opens with Kingston's mother, Brave Orchid, telling her the story of a forgotten aunt who had a child out of wedlock and drowned herself in a well, along with the baby, after being shamed by the villagers. The family refuses to speak of her, erasing her existence. Kingston imagines her aunt's possible life, motivations, and the emotional torment she endured. Though warned not to tell anyone, Kingston ironically resurrects the aunt through storytelling, highlighting the conflict between silence and voice. White Tigers. Kingston imagines herself as Fa Mu Lan, the legendary female warrior who disguises herself as a man and leads troops into battle. This fantasy represents a powerful counter-narrative to the restrictive gender roles imposed on her. Interweaving this fantasy with her real-life experiences of gender expectations in Chinese culture, Kingston explores the gap between myth and reality, hope and limitation. The chapter culminates in her symbolic assertion of agency, suggesting that women can be both warriors and daughters. Shaman. This chapter focuses on Kingston's mother, Brave Orchid, and her life in China as a midwife and medical student. Kingston admires her mother's strength and independence, but also struggles with the mother-daughter relationship. The chapter delves into themes of migration, displacement, and generational conflict. The gap between Brave Orchid's confident, authoritative past and her current life in America, where she is marginalized, mirrors Kingston's own identity crisis. At the Western Palace. Here, Kingston narrates the story of her Aunt Moon Orchid, who comes to America and is reunited with her husband, now remarried and assimilated. Moon Orchid's inability to adapt to American life and her eventual mental breakdown expose the destructive effects of cultural dislocation. The contrast between the two sisters, Brave Orchid, dominant, practical, and Moon Orchid, submissive, traditional, represents differing responses to migration and assimilation. The story is a poignant critique of gender roles and cultural expectations within both Chinese and American contexts. A Song for a Barbarian Reed Pipe. The final chapter focuses on Kingston's childhood in America, her struggle to speak in school, and her rebellion against imposed silence. She recalls being shy, inarticulate, and labeled a quiet girl. Kingston expresses guilt for an incident where she cruelly interrogates a fellow mute Chinese girl, projecting her own frustrations. She later challenges her mother about family secrets and confronts the legacy of silencing. The chapter ends with a reference to Sei Yan, a Chinese poetess who was captured by barbarians but eventually returned home with new songs. This allegory signals Kingston's own journey toward self-expression through writing. Major characters. Maxine Hong Kingston, narrator, protagonist. The central figure, Kingston, is a second-generation Chinese-American caught between two cultures. Throughout the book, she struggles to reconcile her mother's traditional Chinese stories with her American upbringing. Kingston is introspective, sensitive, and ultimately empowered by her ability to rewrite the narratives that define her. Brave Orchid, Kingston's mother. A formidable presence, Brave Orchid embodies both strength and oppression. She is a traditional Chinese woman with a complex past, yet she exercises authority through stories, superstition, and discipline. To Kingston, she is both a role model and a source of anxiety. Moon Orchid, Kingston's aunt. Timid and passive, Moon Orchid represents the inability to adapt to American culture. Her tragic fate serves as a warning about clinging to outdated cultural norms in a new world. No-name woman, forgotten aunt. Though never personally known to Kingston, this aunt becomes a powerful symbol of silenced women. Her erasure by the family is reversed by Kingston's act of storytelling, making her the embodiment of suppressed female voices. Fa Mu Lan, mythic heroine. A legendary Chinese figure, Fa Mu Lan symbolizes female empowerment and becomes a fantasy alter ego for Kingston. By imagining herself as this warrior, Kingston challenges patriarchal narratives and envisions a powerful feminine identity. Themes: silence and voice. Silence is both imposed and chosen. Kingston explores how Chinese immigrant families suppress emotions, sexuality, and personal histories. From the silence surrounding the no-name woman to Kingston's own struggles with speech in childhood, the book examines how voice is suppressed by patriarchy, shame, and cultural expectations. However, storytelling becomes a means of reclaiming voice. Kingston narrates not just to remember but to resist. Writing becomes her rebellion against silence, turning taboo into testimony. Identity and duality. A central theme is the conflict between dual identities: Chinese versus American, daughter versus warrior, tradition versus rebellion. Kingston grows up amid cultural contradictions, expected to be obedient like Chinese girls, yet encouraged to be assertive in American society. This split identity leads to confusion and conflict. The book becomes a space where Kingston constructs a hybrid self, one that includes fantasy, memory, and reality. Gender and power. Women in The Woman Warrior are bound by rigid gender roles: brides, mothers, concubines. The stories passed down to Kingston often depict women as weak or ruined by desire. Yet through myth, like Fa Mu Lan, and memory, Brave Orchid's career, Kingston uncovers stories of strength. She critiques the misogyny in both Chinese tradition and American society. Her own journey is one of finding a space for female autonomy and voice within, and beyond, both cultures. Myth and memory. Kingston's storytelling blurs the line between truth and fiction. Myths such as Fa Mu Lan are not presented as fantasy but as formative parts of her consciousness. Myths are not escapism, they are tools for survival, reflection, and empowerment. Memory, too, is fluid. Kingston acknowledges the unreliability of her stories, pointing out gaps, inventions, and contradictions. Yet this narrative instability mirrors the immigrant experience: fragmented, uncertain, and evolving. Cultural displacement and assimilation. The immigrant experience in The Woman Warrior is marked by alienation and confusion. Kingston feels disconnected from her Chinese heritage yet not fully accepted in American society. Her family's cultural codes often conflict with her external environment, creating a sense of dislocation. This theme is most evident in Moon Orchid's breakdown and Kingston's own childhood speechlessness. Assimilation is not just a social process but an emotional struggle for coherence and wholeness. Literary techniques and style. Non-linear structure. The book resists conventional chronology. Each chapter functions as a self-contained narrative, united by theme rather than timeline. This fragmented form reflects the disrupted nature of memory, diaspora, and cultural transmission. Blending of genres. Kingston fuses memoir, folklore, fiction, and myth. By merging real-life experiences with invented or legendary stories, she challenges the boundaries of autobiography. The use of myth enriches her personal narrative, linking the individual to the collective. First-person narrative voice. Kingston's voice is intimate, reflective, and questioning. She does not claim certainty; instead, she offers interpretations, doubts, and emotional insights. This voice allows readers to connect deeply with her inner world, even as it resists definitive truth. Symbolism. The no-name woman. Symbol of the silenced female in patriarchal culture. Famu Lan. Symbol of female empowerment and the possibility of transformation. Ghosts. Represent both literal spirits and the haunting presence of cultural expectations, racism, and alienation. Kingston is surrounded by ghosts of history, myth, and exclusion. The Barbarian Reed Pipe refers to a poem by Sei Yen, whose bicultural story parallels Kingston's own. It becomes a symbol of reconciling conflicting identities through art. Feminist interpretation. The Woman Warrior is often read as a feminist text. Kingston critiques how women are erased or shamed in traditional Chinese society. Her act of storytelling is a feminist reclamation, giving voice to those silenced. However, her feminism is intersectional. It examines not just patriarchy, but how race, immigration, and cultural norms shape women's experiences. She doesn't discard her heritage but seeks to redefine it on her own terms. Kingston's rewriting of myths like Famu Lan reveals a desire to create empowering narratives for women within her cultural framework. This makes the book not just a critique, but a constructive feminist vision. Reception and legacy. Upon publication, The Woman Warrior received widespread acclaim and won the National Book Critics Circle Award. It became a foundational text in Asian American literature and women's studies. However, it has also attracted criticism, particularly from some Asian American scholars and writers who argue that Kingston's depiction of Chinese culture reinforces Western stereotypes. They claim that her blending of fact and fiction confuses readers about the reality of Chinese traditions. Nonetheless, The Woman Warrior remains a seminal work. Its hybrid form, bold voice, and exploration of identity continue to resonate with readers grappling with cultural conflict, gender oppression, and the search for selfhood. Conclusion. Maxine Hong Kingston's The Woman Warrior is a daring, inventive, and emotionally resonant exploration of identity, memory, and voice. It captures the complexities of growing up as a Chinese American woman caught between inherited stories and personal truths. Through the power of storytelling, Kingston transforms silence into speech, shame into strength, and fragmentation into a narrative of empowerment. Blending autobiography with folklore, the book challenges not only literary form but also cultural narratives that silence women. Kingston doesn't provide easy answers. She offers layered, questioning, and deeply felt accounts that invite readers into the intricate space between cultures, generations, and selves. The Woman Warrior is not just a memoir, it is a revolutionary act of speaking up, redefining history, and claiming a voice for those who have long been silenced.